This is the third lecture in the series on effective writing, and our focus today will be on construction. But before we begin discussing construction, let's review where we are so far. There are 6 main concerns for effective writing, and those are the bold initial items on the outline in your course booklet or the main circular boxes on the circular diagram. First, all good writing concerns itself with audience and purpose. You need to decide whom you're addressing and why. Make an explicit statement of audience and purpose, and keep that flexibly in mind as you write. Second, blueprinting. You need to understand what materials you need and how to arrange them in creating the most effective possible document. In constructing a blueprint, you continue to maintain a firm, flexible, explicit focus on your audience and purpose, and then you go through 3 stages: opening the door, being in the room, and closing the door. Your blueprint can show how to open the room by labeling the contents of the room. In here is a star. Or it can reveal essential reality. There can be a star on the door. Or, for longer and more sophisticated documents, you might reveal 7/8 of the room's contents. Talk about what is likely to be coming, leaving room for the extra surprise, the concluding statement that will really carry the document's message to your reader. Once you have your reader opening the door, you want your reader to be in the room. Here you put all the materials that are most important to convey. This can be done in a number of ways. But however you do it, make sure that as you move from one item after another in the room, one argument that you may want to raise, one reminiscence you may want to share, one point you may want to reject, no matter what is in that room, your movement from one to the other as you survey the contents of the room should be according to some logical principle: chronology, importance, dollar value, emotional attractiveness, whatever. But that logical principle should be something that your reader can understand without you having to state it, so that your reader will help you construct the document. If you want a more sophisticated approach, you may want to construct a straw man, and then when you are in the room, you can be meeting the straw man. You can list one by one the qualities that you think are important, are likely to be in your reader's mind as your reader considers the subject at hand. And then, having laid these out, you can begin to meet them one by one. As you meet the straw man, you show your respect for your reader's own previous position. This is good. If you construct each of these ideas in order, then the same order should be applied as you meet the straw man. And whatever that order is, it should be a clear, logical principle. So that in a sense, meeting the straw man is a further refinement over the notion of surveying the contents of the room according to a clear, logical principle. If you believe you understand well enough what is going on in your reader's potential argument against your position, and you understand how to meet each of those points in your position, if you can meet each point as it arises, if you can ping-pong back and forth from one position to the other, then really you've taken the straw man approach and raised it to a new level of sophistication. As soon as you raise one point, you meet it. Therefore, your reader does not have the opportunity to continue building up support for that point. The weakness of this is that your reader may lose track of where you're going. The strength of this is that you get to address each concern the moment it's in your reader's mind. How can you make ping-pong work? It requires not only that you have a good, clear, logical principle organizing both the dissenting grounds and the accepting grounds, but also that you have some key terms that will make it easy for your reader to follow the development as you go ping-ponging back and forth through that longer route. We'll talk about key terms a bit more when we discuss our focus on construction right now in this lecture. But before we discuss it, we should remember that there are other main concerns for effective writing. After we construct our document, we want to address it with the mind of a dissenting reader, a potentially dissenting reader, to see what might have gone wrong, to meet those problems in advance, to answer those objections before they get out there and defeat our purpose. After we have a document revised according to this procedure of reviewing with the eyes of a potentially dissenting reader, we then want to edit the document to make sure that the spelling, the grammar, the nuances, all are right. Finally, if the document is very important, we want to field test it. Show it to one person if it doesn't matter much. Try it out as a pilot campaign in a whole city if you're intending to go national with it. Field testing is important. Each of us is only one person. We try to understand as well as we can, but we need to take account of the reaction of real audiences. A clear statement of audience and purpose will help our field testing colleagues know what it is we're after. A good blueprint will let them and us see if we have arranged materials that are appropriate. Constructing a document that works, revising it through the eyes of a potentially dissenting reader, editing it so that the language is excellent, gives us the chance to field test it and get back the best possible advice to do that final revision that will make the most effective document we can possibly hope for. Today, we're going to focus on the construction part of that process. When we construct an argument, we want to make sure that we say no more than is necessary. This is a very difficult lesson for some people to learn, and I think the reason for that has to do with our training. In school, most people were taught to write by teachers who gave assignments in the following form. For Tuesday, please discuss the meaning of the whale in Moby Dick, 4 to 6 pages. Now, if you had only a little idea, you still had to hit that 4-page minimum. If you had an enormous idea, but really you didn't much care about the subject, you still were pretty much willing to quit when you got into the 4 to 6 page range. In other words, we've been taught that if you fill up the right length, somehow you've done the major thing, because, after all, the assignment was put primarily in terms of length. Length is not the crucial issue. Real resources is the crucial issue. If you have 10 minutes to get a point across, don't waste 5 of them, but don't pad 5 of them either. So today we're going to discuss how to make sure that you do not write more than is necessary. And then in the next lecture on dissent, we'll try to make sure that you have not written less than what is necessary. To get an idea of how you might write more than is necessary, I provided a few examples which you see reproduced in your course booklet. You should not write more than is necessary on the basis of logic. You should not write more than is necessary on the basis of word choice. And you should not write more than is necessary on the basis of a misunderstanding of what your audience and purpose really is. Let's take a look at the USA Today newsline from the front page. This one sentence, in fact, is the entire article, because on the newsline, USA Today simply gives one-sentence descriptions of things that will then be treated in longer articles later in the newspaper. What does it say? USA's trade gap nears record high in July, but the gaps are expected to narrow if exports gain strength and imports weaken. Gosh, is it possible that if the exports gain strength and the imports weaken, the gaps would increase? No. In fact, how could you get the gaps to decrease? By making sure that exports gain strength and imports weaken. In other words, as short as this sentence is, half of it is redundant. This is, in effect, a stupid thing to say. Everyone who's read the first half and understood it understands the second half as well. This is saying more than it needs to say. This is not the way to construct a good document. Let's take a look at a possible closing. This is from the ABC Company. Covered the name so that I will not reveal any of my own clients, but this client is going to meet, wants to go meet the CEO of a Fortune 500 company in order to offer that CEO what's called contingency labor. That is, this client wants to be the person who will help the Fortune 500 company with office temporaries, leased scientists, and so on. This was to be a letter explaining this desire and aiming to set up a meeting. Here's the closing. John would like to come and meet with you and your associates for further discussion of the unique and innovative staffing solutions that have been proposed to XYZ. Now, XYZ is the Fortune 500 company. Clearly, John is, I would like to come, or it could be written by John's supervisor, and it could be John would like to come. What's wrong with this? Well, if I'm the XYZ company, do I want a unique staffing solution? I mean, if I'm hiring a company with a lot of experience, don't I want that company to use for me what it has found works best? Why would I want something unique? I might want something unique if my situation were unique, but is that the most important thing I can ask for? In the same way, do I want them to be innovative? Do I want them to make up something new for me? Don't I want them to be using something tried, true, tested, reliable, something where I can stop worrying because they're providing me with a service that makes my business work? Why did the writer put down unique and innovative? Because those are sexy words in industry today. What do they mean? Nothing. What are they trying to convey? Excellence. Why not say, John would like to come and meet with you and your associates for further discussion of the excellent staffing solutions that have been proposed to XYZ. Now, why would you say John would like to come and meet with you and your associates? Could he meet with you without coming? Would he come without meeting? Why not condense that? John would like to come meet with you and your associates for further discussion of the unique and innovative staffing solutions. John would like to come meet with you for further discussion of the excellent staffing solutions. John would like to come discuss with you the excellent staffing solutions. The CEO of XYZ will bring associates if he or she so desires. This sentence not only is twice as long as it needs to be, in fact, it misstates the point. It misses the focus on excellence by substituting the rather thoughtless words innovative and unique. When I say that these words are thoughtless, I don't mean that there's a lack of intelligence in the writer. What I mean is that every writing situation develops a communicative culture of its own. We say things in an automatic way that we automatically adjust to that culture. Just as we have competence in language, just as we know that a sentence needs to be fixed if it's said wrong, just as we know the structure of things, we know a whole vocabulary. We know a whole set of social moves. Hi, how are you? Does not require the answer, well, I've got this pain in my back, you see, and it's been bothering me a lot worse than when I saw you last. Hi, how are you, in America today, requires fine. And you? If you say something different, you're shifting the social situation. In any social situation, we get these language tokens that we use as the ordinary coin of discourse. It shows that we're part of the same team. We all share the same world. One business person to another. Here are our unique and innovative solutions. But would that other business person think less of you if instead you had said excellent solutions? If instead you had said tried, tested, and reliable solutions? I think not. How about tailor-made solutions, which would allow you to make them individual if that were the need, and stay with something already existing if that were the need? People don't think about these words because they know that these are the words that they should use. But as Ken Hubbard, an American humorist, said, it's not what we don't know that gets us in trouble. It's what we do know that just ain't so. Thinking that it's important to write these words, we miss the opportunity to write the better words. The way to retrieve that opportunity is to be thoughtful, not thoughtless. This is not a question of stupidity. It's a question of habit. The only way to break the habit is to try out the document on paper. Push it aside, clear your mind, come back, and look at it again, freshly. See if you can keep from saying more than is necessary, so that what you do say is effective. Let's take a look at the second ABC example. This is, in fact, almost exactly as it appeared when one of my clients produced it. Here is the statement of audience. A current customer who has not met the new account manager and is not currently using on-site service. That is, this customer is a company, and no representative of the staffing company actually stays at the client's location. That's the audience, a current customer for staffing who has not met the new account manager and is not currently using an on-site service, doesn't have somebody on premises. What's the purpose of this document? To introduce myself, I'm the new account manager, and to respond to an inquiry that the current customer had regarding on-site services. Now, there is already a problem we should see here. Either the purpose is to introduce myself, or the purpose is to respond to the inquiry. If, in fact, it's the latter, then the fact that the person is new can be just handled briefly. If it's the former, that the person is new, the possibility of discussing on-site services might be a little thing one adds at the end in saying, and so I would like to come see you so we can get to know each other better. What is really the purpose here? It can't be two things. You can't have two main purposes. If you have two main purposes, they should fit within a larger purpose. So this statement of audience and purpose already promises trouble. How should we label the door? The writer said, introduce myself as the new account manager. Acknowledge past ABC and customer relationship. Acknowledge that I am responding to the customer's inquiry about on-site services. Again, much too much has been said. You can't construct a good opening when you have three different things that have to be said simultaneously. A good opening is an opening. The writer needs to figure out what he or she wants to say. Now, being in the room, surveying the contents, the room's contents, the writer said, state the advantages of ABC's on-site program. State appreciation for past business. Express interest in learning more about customers' current and future needs. You notice that something has dropped out here? No longer does it say, introduce myself as the new account manager. This gives me a clue, looking over this blueprint, that the appropriate construction would depend upon restating the statement of audience and purpose to remove any emphasis on the newness of the account manager and stay with the idea that making the new service proposal is what the document really wants. Closing the door. State that I will call within a week to set up a follow-up appointment. Absolutely right. This is what the person wanted all along. So in constructing this document, what the person should have done was create a shift up and down the line. We should have said, this is a document whose purpose is to get a sales opportunity to discuss on-site services with an existing customer. Then, being in the room, one might say, you wrote us a letter. I have been appointed to be the new account manager. We can get to work together better if I come see you. Closing. I've taken a chronological principle to organize my parts of the room inside the letter. That would be a way to construct the letter, and that would be a guide to the proper construction, saying no more than is necessary. In order to make all of this easy, one needs to have often key terms. What are key terms? Key terms are terms that one uses to help your reader remember exactly what you're talking about. And these are very important. If I were to say to you, I want to tell you about all the wonderful qualities of my wife, that's a good labeling of the door. If I then began with, well, her hair is lustrous and her, what would I say next? Eyes are beautiful, or mind is fascinating. If I say her eyes are beautiful, you know that I'm on my way to talking about a whole series of physical attributes. Hair, eyes, ought to be followed by lips, hands, what have you. If I say her hair is this, her mind is that, somehow I'm going into a different domain. So maybe I want to say her hair is this, her mind is that, her character is something else. Each principle suggests something different. How do you keep track of what's going on if you follow a principle like the second one, where everything is a different aspect of a human being? Well, one good way is to pick a key term. One might say, my wife's hair is the most shining hair I've ever seen. My wife's ideas are the most shining ideas I've ever heard. My wife's character is the most shining character I've ever had the pleasure to know. And by using that key term, shining, I've managed to keep you with me as I go from one domain to another. That becomes my key term. Why that key term? Why don't I say of her hair and her mind and her character that they are cute? One could use that word for all of those same things. Well, cute and shining reflect two different attitudes toward the same person. Shining says something about great worth and a revelation to me, whereas cute suggests somehow that I'm at an elevation, I'm at a distance, and I'm able to assess and be amused by what I see. Which would I rather convey? As it happens, I'd rather convey the idea of shining. But to know that, I have to think through the issue and pick my key term accordingly. A key term, then, is not simply a word to be repeated. It's a special word which, by its repetition, helps focus the reader's attention on the main point of the whole document. Key terms are chosen by analysis. Most of us, when we took English in high school or even junior high school, were told that it's not a good thing to repeat words. If you say, the man walked into the room, then sometime later you want to say, the man fled the room. You don't want to just turn it around and say, the man walked out of the room. Don't repeat that word walked, the teacher might have said. It's dull. It may be dull, but if you want to say, the man dashed into the room, did a number of things very, very rapidly, and then exited quickly, you make a very good point if you say, the man dashed from the room. By repeating that key term, all of the things that were done in the room are joined with his entrance and his exit to make dash the key concept. Somehow or other, we're talking about someone who is driven. And if we're writing a story, it may well be that the dash raises a question for us. Why is he in such a hurry? What's going on? Pick key terms well. The choice of a key term will make it possible for your reader to follow you as you survey the contents of the room and simultaneously fix in your reader's mind the ideas that led you to choose precisely those key terms. Let's consider an example. Pause your tape player and take the time to read the article about Toyota's biggest channel to get Cavalier. When you're done reading it, start the tape again, and we'll discuss it. This article uses many key terms. For example, we have the word sales channel. This obviously is an important term. It's repeated throughout the article. In addition, we have the word badge. Now, badge has a special virtue, I think, in the case of this article, because badge means something in a special way. We could talk about a nameplate, we could talk about a trademark, we could talk about a logo, but the word badge has certain special connotations. What do we think of? We think of a merit badge. We think of a badge of honor. We think of a badge of approval. We also think of a badge as something put onto somebody rather than something which is just written or something which is just thought about. It's a physical thing put on something and stands for honor. It's a good thing to associate with the new nameplate under discussion. Hence, this is an excellent key term. Notice that in this article, the key term badge is reused later in the term rebadged. By picking up the term badged and using it again as rebadged, the writer is able to make us understand not only what will happen in a practical way, but what's happening philosophically, or more to the point here, what the marketing approach is. We're looking for a new badge of honor to meet a new market. Notice, however, that sales channel is equally well a key term in this article. What exactly is a sales channel? As far as I've been able to tell, the term sales channel to refer to a distribution network, that is both the processes of distribution and the physical locations of dealerships and so on, is confined to a small number of industries. Most industries don't use that term, sales channel. Is that a good term here or a bad term? This article was taken from Automotive News. That is a respected trade journal for people in the automobile industry. For people in that industry, sales channel is a well-known term. It's a term that they use among themselves. When the writer uses the term sales channel, he's actually saying, I'm one of you. It's like, hi, how are you? Fine. It's that same kind of, perhaps, thoughtless language. But in this case, I think the writer is not being thoughtless. I think the writer is using that term quite consciously in the same way that he's using the term badged. He wants to make sure that the notion of badge and rebadge gets associated with sales channel, that the new sales channel is available because of the process of rebadging. That is at the heart of the work. And so he has used a key term to make it possible for us to see through the whole of the paper, of the article. This is good construction. Now, other words in here might also be thought of as key terms. For example, Toyota, Chevrolet, Cavalier. You may not think of those terms as key terms because you're so familiar with them in other contexts. But in fact, if you read the article with care, you'll see that those terms are used again and again and again. Is that good or bad? This is a business newspaper. Toyota, Chevrolet, and Cavalier are the key terms. These are the organizations involved in the transaction, in the planning, in the development of the industry, in what it is that is being done. This is good writing. You too may have key terms that you don't recognize as key terms because they seem so natural to you to use. But in fact, they are key terms. So don't use them thoughtlessly. Think about them and pick the ones that really reflect what you are after. Lest I put too much praise on this one small article, I should say there are some problems as well. If you read this with care, you'll see that we have some exemplary quotes. We take a look here. To underscore the deal, Toyota will begin advertising in English language dailies this week in Japan, though sales won't begin for more than a year. We really want to make this a success, said one Toyota official. Really? You mean you would advertise for a year when you didn't want to make it a success? Why is that statement in there? Why is the Toyota official being quoted? I imagine that somewhere in journalism school, this writer was taught, vary your article a little bit. Put in a quote every now and then. Well, that's a good idea. But the quote should actually say something. We already know from what was said in advance, that is, that they're going to advertise for a year before they have any sales, that they want to make this a success. Merely restating it does nothing. More is being said here than should be said. In fact, there is a deeper problem. This article, although in some ways extraordinarily well constructed, I think is probably full of filler. If you read it with care, you'll see that all the quotes refer to an official, said an official, okay? Or said a Toyota spokesman. My guess is that this writer got a news release, found out what was going on, called Toyota, and spoke to a person. That person and he shared a few moments on the phone, and that person then miraculously became a Toyota spokesman, an official, a spokesperson. In other words, we have a not very interesting phone conversation being cannibalized to make a fine 3-column article into a 4-column article. The techniques of using keywords have been employed here excellently, but still the problem remains. Too much has been said. This article should be cut. The construction has too many little bells and whistles on the house. If you want to discuss how to get rid of what is extra, you need to show your document to someone else. You need to ask someone else to think for you. Now, you don't always have someone else. So again, I return to my favorite advice. Go take some time and come back. Reread with a fresh mind. Is it possible that every word you put down there really adds something? Does everything you say give your reader something new? If all you're doing is saying what is obvious, you risk boring your reader. Bored readers stop reading. If the main thing you want to get across is in your closing, you do not dare risk losing your reader before you get to that closing. One problem that writers often encounter has to do with the fact that many documents, especially those that are done in the workplace, have multiple audiences, and those multiple audiences have multiple needs. For example, let us say that you are putting together a proposal to XYZ company in which you want them to buy a whole range of related products from your company. Let's say that the range of products has to do with electrical work, and you want them to buy transistors, wires, and some pre-built components. This is, for the sake of discussion, a multi-million-dollar proposal. Who is going to read it? If it's a multi-million-dollar proposal, the chief executive officer is going to read it. If the chief executive officer likes what he or she sees, the executive committee, the steering committee, what have you, whatever it may be called in that organization, is also going to read it. How will they decide whether or not they want to accept the proposal? Well, are the transistors good? That's a technical matter. The CEO may not know anything about that, and neither may the members of the steering committee. But somebody in XYZ Corporation knows a lot about transistors, and that person's going to have to read about transistors in your proposal. If you write a lot about transistors in your proposal, the CEO will fall asleep. If you leave out the information about the transistors in your proposal, the CEO will not accept the proposal. How do you get around this? You construct a document according to the triangle you see on your screen and in the course booklet. You begin with an executive summary. This is supposing a long document. The executive summary might say something like, our company has the most competitive prices on wire. We are competitive on transistors, and we have the best research division possible for producing customized components. We believe that overall it is possible to put together a contract which will give you the lowest net costs for the highest quality in this range of products. Why am I putting that in the executive summary? Because I don't want the CEO to cut out the place where I'm only competitive, not the lowest possible price. I'm predicating my overall sales price on the idea that I have a certain volume of business with this company. I want that executive summary to highlight what is at the core of the kind of proposal I'm making. And in fact, the executive summary might go on a bit more and suggest phasing in different orders, may suggest service, and so on. Typically, an executive summary is somewhere between half a page and 2 pages, little more than that. This is the summary the executive who needs to make the decision will read. Will the executive read more than that? Will the executive read the proposal as a whole? Perhaps, perhaps not. It may be, as is the case in many companies, that the executive comes up through one route in the company, and the proposal that the executive needs to make a decision about touches many. Many companies, for example, are run by people who come up on the finance side. Many other companies traditionally are run by people who come up on the marketing side. How is somebody from finance to assess a proposal that really rests on issues of marketing? How is someone in marketing to assess a proposal that really depends upon issues of production? What the executive is likely to do is read, if he or she is interested, the proposal overall, and then farm out that same proposal to other people who will also read the whole proposal to see how well it all fits together, but contribute their reactions to each of the areas, say finance, marketing, research, development, production. But even those people who are in charge of those areas may themselves not be able to make the most efficient decisions about some concrete detail. What will they do? Just as you or I might take a contract that we receive and give it to a lawyer for advice, for example, when we want to buy a home, so someone in a large organization might take the article, take the proposal, take the document, and give it to someone who specializes. If you take a look at this triangle then, the executive summary is something that is of no interest to the person in accounting who has to see whether or not the numbers in the prototypical contract add up right. In fact, that person in accounting may not even read the executive summary. On the other hand, the executive summary will be read by people who will never take the trouble to read what the person in accounting reads. They just want an assertion from accounting that this all holds water. How do we create one document that can reach all these different audiences? We begin with an executive summary, and then we have an overview proposal, a complete proposal that has within it an overview of everything that would go in it. It may have, for instance, a table of contents that says, here's the history of our relationship, here's what we propose for the future, here's a cost analysis. And then following that, here are our appendices. Appendix 1 on costs, Appendix 2 on service, Appendix 3 on whatever may be necessary. This same principle applies when you're writing a paper in school. It may well be, for instance, that your teacher is not at all interested in reading all the books that you've read. That's why you attach a bibliography. If you wanted to read the books, here they are. If you want to determine whether or not I've looked at enough books, here they are. Make your decision. But it may not be that you need to look at them at all. So, a good proposal should have a summary, a complete proposal with its overview, and attachments with reference tools. Somehow that table of contents, a cross-index, something that's going to make it possible for every one of the members of the audience to navigate through that overall document according to his or her individual needs. The accountant knows how to find the appendix that pertains to accountancy. The executive knows to find the summary. The main officers of the company know to read the report as a whole, or the proposal as a whole. Now, this particular triangle suggests that the appended material will always be much more voluminous than the report itself. Not necessarily so. Do not write more than is necessary. If you're writing a paper for school, in fact, your only appendix may be a bibliography. Don't try to make the bibliography longer than the paper unless you really have read 15 pages worth of books and want to use that to make reference to a 5-page article that you've just written. But if you need to add more material, remember that your most important readers are going to be the readers who make the decisions. You want to demand as little of their time as possible. So the more material you can put into appendices while still maintaining the structure and power of your overall proposal, the more you should put into appendices. The more you put into appendices, the more crucial becomes the design of reference tools so that people can work their way through your proposal. How can you practice this? Well, you can practice by constructing an actual document, and I would like you to do that. Take either the self-introduction that you wrote in response to the last lecture, or take some other work for which you could have a blueprint. For example, having none other, you might use the example 2 from the ABC company in the materials provided with this course. Take this blueprint, or take this work that has this blueprint, and review the statement of audience and purpose. Review the blueprint. Then reconsider the key elements in the opening and closing. What are you really after? And in so doing, see if it's possible for you to settle on 1, 2, no more than 3 key terms, crucial at the heart of what you want to say. Having those key terms, revise the statement of audience, the statement of purpose, and the blueprint as may seem necessary to you. Then, having that revised blueprint, construct the document. Remember, the construction itself is still a dialectic process. As you begin to write, you may well find that you need to consider whether or not the blueprint needs revision, the statements of audience and purpose need revision, but do construct that document. Then, as always, take a break. Put the document aside for a day. Exchange it with a colleague. You look at his, he looks at yours. Make marks on these. Use the revision marks on the end papers of your handbook. Make little notes. Write comments. Give them back. After another day passes, try to rewrite your document, reconstruct it, and if need be, revise the blueprint and the statements of audience and purpose to take into account what you have learned from paying attention to these comments. When you're done doing that, if you're taking this as a course with an instructor, submit the statements of audience and purpose, the blueprint, and the constructed draft as your assignment. But if you're not taking it, still please understand that this is your next step toward constructing the most effective possible document. Keep your mind open, learn more as you go through the process, and always seek to write the most effective document that you can.